Not even 1 week ago, we were talking about the disappearance of Emmanuel Haro, a 7-month-old baby whose parents' behavior was, well, let's say, really strange. I made a video about that and all the circumstances of the case, and, well, so many red flags, so strange body language, so lack of emotions, and the background, especially of the father, well, we didn't have much hope. And it turns out that, well, yes, we were right about the red flags, because the tragedy is that Emmanuel Haro is dead. The baby is dead. And this is not the end of the case, in fact. This is like the start of a very twisted thing surrounding the father. Because one of the most disturbing facts about what has just happened in the last 24 hours is that nobody knows where Emmanuel Haro's remains are. Not even the father, who is pretty sure that Emmanuel is no longer with us. How does that work? Well, you tell me. Jake and Rebecca Haro, Rebecca is the mother, are both charged with murder and filing a false report in the disappearance of their 7-month-old son, Emmanuel. Prosecutors allege Emmanuel died from prolonged abuse through reports conflict about whether Jay confessed to killing his son in jail. There's a lot of stuff to unpack here, in the sense that he did not confess to, let's say, to investigators per se. He confessed to an undercover agent in prison. I saw that was interesting. I heard about that technique a couple times ago. I was surprised to find out that, yeah, he spontaneously said that he, quote unquote, accidentally killed his son. He just was sleeping with his baby on the bed. He just rolled over and suffocated him. That's what happened. And, well, he just went on and apparently dumped the body somewhere, or we don't know if he dumped it or buried it. But the fact that the guy doesn't know where it is. And that's one of the most disturbing things about this, because he claimed that he is innocent of any wrongdoing. And when you remember the details of this case, not only we have the concerning fact that, according to the calculations of the officers, Emmanuel was already deceased 10 days before the reports. I think that this is by the recollections that they can, by the interrogations, he was already deceased 10 days before the initial report. So we can say that, well, they waited a long time to come forward and make up that story. But the thing is that I wanted to make reference to this. Not only I will be following this case very closely, because this case is disturbing in another level, because I want to talk about how, and remember that, how Jake Haro, the father, he literally beat his 10-week-old daughter back in 2018. 10-week-old daughter. He beat her so bad that he left her blind, paralyzed, and with only 3% brain function for life. He did that monstrosity back then. And you might be asking the question, how was he free? How is he free? How come he went on and did basically the same and even worse? I couldn't say that it's even worse, because this girl is gonna be there for the rest of her life, taken care by family. He's not even seeing her or anything. Who let this guy walk free? And I was trying to find out that this was quite buried in the data at a court hearing on June 8, 2023. Okay, 5 years after this happened, Superior Court Judge Dwight W. Moore suspended Jake Haro's 6-year prison sentence and granted probation instead. You have to understand, he did this to his own daughter, newborn, 10 weeks old. And he was scheduled for 6 years in prison. Only 6 years. And he was granted probation. I'm giving you a chance, said Judge Moore. Don't mess it up. Good luck. It appeared from his comments at the time that Moore thought the threat of prison for any probation violation would be a deterrent for any further wrongdoing. Well, Judge Moore, you guessed wrong. And I want to, my question is, how these people allow these monsters to just walk free after what they did, after what Jake Harrow did. More details to this. It's quite disturbing. I pulled Jake Harrow's actual sentencing for viciously beating his child, leaving her permanently incapacitated with only 3% brain function, blind and unable to care for herself in any capacity. Jake received only a 180-day sentence, but only served 1 day. The judge gave him work release. He was able to go to work and sleep at home. He was only forced to report to jail for 1 day in order to process him. That's what you get in Riverside, California, of course. California. I see this case. I'm going to put the picture of these two animals. I see this case, and I don't know if you remember the case of Kenneth McDuff, the broomstick murders. Maybe you are a fan of true crime and you remember the broomstick murders. So it was back in, if I remember correctly, it was in 1966. This guy with another, they abducted 3 teenagers, 2 boys and 1 girl. He shot the 2 boys and sexually assaulted the girl with a broomstick. And then he strangled her to death. A very gruesome case. And he was given the death penalty because, well, at that moment in time, not in the 60s, America was still a proper country. Well, you send these monsters to death. But in 1972, as sentencing of the Supreme Court just overturned every single death penalty into a life sentence. So he was his death row. He being in death row was converted to a life sentence. And all right, how does that work? You know, the degradation of society. It so happens that we land in the 80s, and in the 80s, it was happening in Texas, by the way. Texas prisons were overcrowded. And so somebody said, you know, we need to sort the overcrowding problem. We need to get some people out. And somebody picked up McDuff's file and said, hey, this guy has been here for some time. This guy has been here for what? It was 1989 at that point. It was 23 years in jail. Hey, you know what? We could give parole to this guy. Maybe he's reformed. There was no way to tell that the guy was reformed. There was no signs of rehabilitation whatsoever, but they had to do something. That they just let him go. Because I have to say this. Let's give him a chance, right? Right. All right. So McDuff from 1989 to 1992, 3 years, he went on to commit worse murders than the broomstick murders. At least 9 that we know of. Much worse than the original. He was finally captured in 1993 and he was given the lethal injection in 1998. My question is always the same. You judge these monsters, right? We say that they are subhumans. We could say that they are animals, but animals are way too, beautiful in many ways. It can be, Mother Nature can be savage, right? But they are animals. These are like unhuman, subhumans. It's like you cannot, demons, you can call them what you want, but they're not human. But then what happens with the people who let them free? Would give them just a slap on the hand and say, you know what, I'm going to give you a chance. Maybe the judges, I don't know, feel more human, like, oh yeah, I'm going to give this man an opportunity to be reformed. I'm pretty sure like this stupid judge thought, oh yeah, the threat, breaking his, as I think it was the threat of prison for any probation violation would be a deterrent for any further wrongdoing. Man, you understand what he did? If he was capable of doing this, and by the way, the monster says that he didn't do it. Of course, he didn't do nothing. You know how it works. It was his ex-wife it was an accident of his ex-wife that let the girl just drop the girl in the sink, and that caused the injuries. You know how that works. My question is, shouldn't we judge the judges as well? Shouldn't we judge the ones who let these animals, subhumans, free? Shouldn't we make them accountable? How does this work? How does this system, this rotten system of justice work? I would love to know what you think about this in the comments. My name is Jesus Enrique Rosas. I'm the body language guy. Much love and bliss.